Hello everybody, welcome to my channel once again, Live Beyond Vision. My name is Diego, and the topic for today's video is identity. Specifically talking about my identity as I struggled with vision loss, right? And I will conclude the video by just sharing some advice for those family members, friends, or other people who have somebody in their lives who is struggling with vision loss, as well as for those who are going through vision loss themselves. So let's get started with this video. What people may not know is that as I was struggling with my vision loss, I was also struggling with my identity. Just on its own, being an adolescent is difficult, right? But if you add a visual impairment or any other kind of impairment, that just adds to things, right? And you begin to deal with many other aspects that perhaps others who are just going through adolescence don't have to deal with. One of the things for me as I was losing my vision was being independent, right? That's one of the biggest things, I guess you can say, and I'm sure you guys can imagine what kinds of things I was losing in terms of like my independence, right? The biggest thing, not being able to drive, right? And I'm sure you can probably think of many more, and I can probably share more of that in a different video, since the topic of being independent will be present in many of my other videos, right? But for this video, I wanted to focus just like on identity, which it's also a pretty broad topic, but I'm gonna try and just stick to like a certain part of identity, and perhaps again, that topic will pop up in some of my other videos. So as you guys may know, and as I've mentioned in many of my other videos, soccer was like my main thing. It was my main sport, you know, that was one of my biggest identities, right? Diego the soccer player, or you can say Diego the athlete, right? Like, you know, everybody knew that I played sports. You know, whenever we would have picnics in the park with family, I would be the one who would always bring like the cones, the soccer balls, the volleyballs, softballs, all that stuff, because I was always prepared. You know, I was always the active one. And so once I began to lose my vision, that kind of went away, right? Another part of the identity was, you know, being social, right? As I mentioned in my previous video, you know, that also began to like get brushed away. Because as I explained in my other video, you know, it's harder, it became harder to socialize with people due to my visual impairment. But sticking to this identity of the soccer player, because that was my main identity. It was something that I developed as I was growing up, right? Since a very young age, I played soccer. Everybody knew me for playing soccer, right? They knew me as Diego, the guy who plays soccer. If they knew anything about me, it was that I loved soccer. My friends, my family, my teachers, my parents' friends, my dad's friends from work, you know, even at the church where I went to and I was in the youth group, I would always be the one with the soccer ball when I would go to school. That's how I made friends. So again, you know, it was a big part of me, and it was present everywhere I went. So when I began to lose my vision, that identity stuck with me. But now, something that used to bring me joy, happiness, and, you know, something that I worked hard and I enjoy being identified as, became like my worst enemy, right? It became something that aggravated me, something that made me feel sad and anger at the same time. It was just something that I got annoyed by, right? Because everywhere I went, you know, whenever I would run into people from my church or just old friends or even like family members who didn't really know what was going on with me, and they would ask me things like, so how is soccer? Or do you still play soccer? It would hurt me so much, right? To say, no, I don't play soccer, or to say, well, I don't play soccer anymore, right? Because it was something that I didn't want to accept yet. You know, it was something that was like, it would hurt me, right? It would literally, like, I would feel pain, like, I didn't know how to answer. What I actually wanted to say a lot of times was, shut the fuck up, can you just stop asking me about soccer, right? Like I wanted to just scream out and say that whenever somebody would ask me that, because I would just hear it so many times and I was just tired, right? I was just tired of having to tell people, no, I don't play soccer anymore, right? Like, you know, it was hard for me to accept it myself, and I also had to tell everybody something I didn't want to accept, something that I didn't want to believe it was true. It was hard, right? I never screamed out at anybody, of course. You know, I understand that, you know, a lot of people perhaps didn't know what was going on with me, right? Of course, you know, how would they know if I never told them, or if they really weren't too present in my life, right? How are they supposed to know? So I understood that, but at the same time, you know, it didn't take away the feelings I had. So that identity was very difficult to get away from. And a lot of times what I would do was either avoid the question or just I would begin to use swimming as something to kind of like help me out, right? As I mentioned, I joined the swim team during that junior year. And so a lot of times I would just say, well, I'm actually in the swim team now, right? And I would just take the topic away from soccer. I would find little ways of just switching the conversation, but needless to say, that still was painful for me to hear and annoying as well. But, little by little, I was able to get away from it. And actually in my next video, I would share more about how I kind of created a new identity for myself. So the reason I wanted to bring up this idea of identity, which can be, again, very broad, and it can be like many different kinds of identities, right? Like my identity as being a brother, being a son, a student, and all that stuff, right? I can talk about that, and I probably will in a different video. But for now, I just wanted to bring up that part of my identity that I struggled with, right? Because a lot of times when somebody's going through vision loss, people may fail to see that they are struggling with an identity, right? And a lot of times it could be something that, again, like for me, it was something I loved. It was something that I loved, something that I enjoyed doing. And of course, people wanted to like talk to me about soccer, but it was at a time where I didn't want to talk about soccer, right? And, I'm sure there's people out there who are going through vision loss, or perhaps will be going through vision loss. And I'm sure they're going to miss something that they can no longer do. There may not be a way to accommodate for them to be able to do what they love to do. And so just some advice for counselors, parents, friends, family members, anybody who is in contact with a person who's going through vision loss, just be very cautious as to what kind of topics you bring up, right? Just because they used to do something and they used to love doing it and now they don't, it doesn't mean that they stop loving it. But it also doesn't mean, they want to talk about it all the time, right? Because, maybe they stopped doing it for a reason, and, maybe they don't, want to talk about it, right? Maybe it's actually something that's hurting them, but you think, no, they used to love this. We could still talk about this, right? My advice there would be like, try and bring up a conversation, a very genuine conversation. Don't ever say things like, I don't understand why you feel that way if I don't do this anymore. And I used to love doing this, right? Because when you compare yourself and you have good vision, a lot of times you end up quitting something because you want to, right? But you could pick it up anytime you want, right? When somebody's going through vision loss and they have to let go of something that they loved because of the vision loss, they won't be able to do it again. So just be very cautious. And the reason I share this is because during those adolescent years, nobody ever asked me, how is not being able to play soccer affecting you? It was just something that I dealt with myself, I can say. And yes, I did end up going to therapy later in my college years, and I will have another video where I will share that with you guys. And I spoke on it a little bit, but by then I was like a little bit more understanding and accepting of everything, right? But I will say that, letting go of soccer was one of the most difficult things for me. And there's many more things I can talk about in terms of identity, but I wanted to make this kind of like a short video where I just talk about this and share something and give advice, right? And perhaps in a future video, I'll talk a little bit more about other things that I missed or that I lost as I was losing my vision. Lastly, just advice for those of you who are going through vision loss or who will be going through vision loss at some point. If you're able to do something now, whether that be a sport or something that you enjoy doing that you think you're not going to be able to do in the future when you lose your vision, enjoy it to the fullest. Anytime you have a chance to do it, do it. I think I can say I played soccer every single time I had the chance. I was in the soccer field. I was never really home. I never really got attached to video games. And so I was always out in the park, whether it was by myself, making new friends, just me and a soccer ball. That makes you friends. So, I was always out there. My neighbors hate me because I would be playing soccer in my backyard with my brother, and we would break plans and throw the ball over. I can't say how many times my neighbor took like my soccer balls, and he would I remember he would be like, I'm gonna give this to kids who really need it. But I would always have another soccer ball to bring out, so I didn't really care. He probably took like 10 of my soccer balls. But anyways, my other piece of advice will be, it's okay for you guys to grieve. It's okay for you guys to be sad, angry about not being able to do something you love doing, right? Because it's normal for one to miss things, right? Like, missing soccer or any kind of sport, or even just seeing TV, it's okay. What's not okay is to stay focused on that negativity, right? Try and find some way to make something positive, right? And I'm not saying it's gonna happen tomorrow or the next day or a year, right? It probably will take you some time to actually accept and be okay with certain things and be able to move on from it, right? Another thing could be find something else that find something else that interests you, right? I'm not saying it's gonna be something that's gonna replace that, because for me, there's nothing that's gonna ever replace soccer. But again, swimming helped me. Now I played this sport called goalball, which is amazing, and it could possibly replace soccer at one point. And I will actually introduce that to you guys in a future video. But for now, if you guys want to look it up, it was an awesome sport. It's pretty extreme. I love it, and I've been playing it for a year now, and it is awesome. Sticking on that idea of, finding something else, if you know that in the future you're going to be losing vision, one of my biggest advice would be research what's out there, right? Adaptable sports, for example, goalball. I actually didn't really know about goalball, right? I heard about it maybe 2 years ago, but it was a year ago when I actually played it and fell in love with it, right? So there's so many sports that I didn't know, right? There's blind hockey. There's actually soccer too, but I wouldn't play it because to me, soccer would always be the soccer I played, right? Adaptable soccer, it just doesn't sound like soccer to me, right? It doesn't think like, it's something I feel I want to enjoy, right? Just like there's beat baseball, right? Which is similar to baseball, but it's different, right? It's kind of like its own game, right? So, look those up. There's just many other sports out there, and there's many things one can do. It's just a matter of researching, right? And I actually will make some other video about advice as to, some things that helped me out as I was losing vision. I've always been a person who likes to plan things out, right? I always kind of like look for like, what do I need that's gonna help me in my future? And I can share a little bit more about that in another video. Don't be scared to look things up. You might not enjoy it now. You may not even want to try it out, but at least you know about it, right? For when the time comes, or for, maybe one day you find out that, somebody who is playing it, you might want to ask questions, right? That's the way I got involved. That's the way I got involved in goalball. I actually met somebody who played it, and they told me, you know what, come out, try it out. That's the only way you're gonna know if it's for you. So again, there's many ways one can find accommodations for certain things, right? But it's just a matter of looking for them, right? And I'll be honest, sometimes you just don't know, right? If you're not involved in a community with people who are blind, right? Or people who have a visual impairment, you're not gonna know. There's a lot of things that I didn't know and that I actually learned by actually talking to people who are blind, who they've been doing it for years, and I was like, well, how do you do this, right? And once they told me certain things, I was like, why didn't I know about this before, right? It would have made my life so much easier. And I say all this, and it's easy for me to say these things, right? But it is. But I understand that it's difficult, and it will be difficult to get through, certain things and certain feelings and accepting. I understand that. But try and get away from like negative thinking, right? Because if you stay on that, it's only going to hurt you more, right? I'm not saying be happy, be positive all the time, but try and actually look things up, right? Or communicate with people, right? There's a community out there that is ready to just, be open. There's a community out there that's just ready to receive you with open arms and showing you how to make certain things accessible that you probably think are not, right? So I think I've been rambling on for too long. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, the content, and again, if you have any questions, anything else you want to learn more about or just share with me, just leave it in the comments below. I will have a new video up for you guys soon. Till next time.